So don't mow it, grow it. Lawns are bullshit anyway, man. They give you nothing back. They just take up time and resources. Let it go, man. And the longer the better. The longer you leave it, the better it is for your living neighbors.
You, no.
No! Don't do it, man.
No.
Come on. No!
I don't like you. This week's video is all about doing absolutely nothing in your yard and patting yourself on the back because of it.
Hey there, you ever heard of No-Mow May? Well, I'm doing No-Mow June here, and for very good reason. If you have a lawn or a yard of any kind, watch this video because I'm going to explain to you why it's such an important concept for wildlife and for nature in general. But firstly, let me introduce myself. My name's Steve. I'm an outdoor educator, and I spend a lot of time digging into subjects just like this and teaching people about them. Not mowing your lawn or tending your yard in any way requires literally zero effort from you, and you'll be doing the entire ecosystem in your area a huge service. And just in case you're not familiar with the whole No-Mow jam, let me explain it to you a little bit. It's an initiative that encourages people not to tend their yards, to not mow their lawn, to not do any weeding for the entire month of May and longer like I'm doing if you can stand it. Allowing native plants and especially wildflowers to grow at this time of year does a massive service in terms of creating food and habitat for pollinators like bees and butterflies and thousands of other insects who are most active at this time of year and really need places to do their thing. And although there's all kinds of different little micro and macro species that depend on wildflowers and native plants, we're primarily talking about our little insect neighbors. And people don't give insects much consideration beyond, oh, I want to keep them out of the house, oh, I don't want them to sting me, etc. And a lot of that is frankly nonsense. We rely on insects in so many ways that people don't fully understand. Most insects want absolutely nothing to do with us. We're much more of a nuisance in their lives than they are in ours, and in fact, we're a lethal threat in most cases. So keep that in mind next time you want to swat a yellow jacket or a little pond fly or a bee or something. We need those guys. But more on that as the video moves along. Right now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what this video is really all about. Allowing native plants to thrive and flourish, especially at this time of year when those pollinator insects and all the other macro and micro life depends on them for food, habitat, and most importantly, breeding. I'm going to take you on a little walk around my completely untended yard right now in the middle of June and show you the amazing biodiversity that's happening because I allowed it to, and you should too. But just before we start walking around, I want to show you as an example some of the amazing biodiversity right in this 1 square meter where I happen to plop down the tripod. Right here, I can see a whole bunch of wall lettuce. This is Lactuca muralis. In fact, I think it might have got moved out of that genus. I'll have to check on that one. But anyway, wall lettuce, look at these flowers that are on their way. I would say in maybe a week to 10 days, these are going to be beautiful flowers that create food and habitat for pollinators. I see Taraxacum officinale, the common dandelion, which is one of the most useful and nutritious plants out there. I see broadleaf plantain, Plantago major. I see wild strawberries. I see wood sorrel. I see curly dock over there. Anyway, I think you get the point. If I were to take a little bit of time, as we're about to do as we walk around the property, I would probably find 10, 15, 20 species of beneficial plants that are not only beneficial for pollinators and insects and micro and macro life, but that can be beneficial to us. So if you take the leap and you let your yard go, it also can open up a whole bunch of foraging opportunities.
But just before we head out to the big show on the front lawn, let's move that tripod and have a quick look at this 1 or 2 square meters that I was just talking about. There's the appropriately named wall lettuce. It really does grow in shady areas next to walls. It's the only place I've ever seen it. We'll look down in all these grasses. I see more dandelions. And hey, look at this. Here's a guy that I missed. This is the common mouse ear chickweed, and this is an awesome little plant. This little guy has a great flavor, something akin to asparagus. A lot of people say you can eat it raw or cooked, like as a pot herb. Some people use it as a spinach substitute. And yeah, see that little flower on there? That's what we're talking about for pollinators. And it's also worth noting this little guy has a long history of traditional medicinal use. It's been used for centuries to treat minor skin irritations. Now let's move on to these dandelions. These ones here are a little pooched. I'll show you some fresher ones as we go along. But I love this plant. In fact, I'm gonna do a whole video on this plant down the line, but look at how beautiful that thing is. Truth be told, when it comes to pollinators, this is not the best source of food, but it is for us, and I'm gonna do a whole video on that in the future. This plant is amazing. There's so much to say about dandelions. I don't have time right now, but the entire plant is edible and or medicinal, like all the aerial parts, even the root, even the tiny little leaves when they first start coming are great in salads. The root makes a great coffee substitute when it's roasted, and I can tell you about 100 other things, but let's move on. And check it out, without even moving the camera, I've got broadleaf plantain growing right beside those dandelions. This is Plantago major, and while this plant isn't particularly useful for pollinators, it's great for us. This has a long, long history of traditional medicinal use as well. It makes an amazing poultice. When you chew it up and throw it on itchy bug bites, it'll relieve that itching almost instantaneously. It's great for little cuts and scrapes, helping them to heal. It's very, very nutritious. It makes a great pot herb. This is probably the closest thing to like a good spinach substitute that I'm seeing right here in front of me. And I'm not going to tell you a million things about every single plant that we run into this morning, but I want to tell you a little bit about each one, because if you're new to foraging and you don't know these plants and you've always thought that they were weeds, which is a notion you should disabuse yourself of immediately. A weed is just a plant that's growing somewhere a human doesn't want it to be or expect it to be, okay? Get that into your head. But they all have amazing uses. They all have important roles in nature, and some of them are really good for us. And you know who knows this plant intimately, even if they're not foragers, are like the highway road worker dudes. They get bit by bugs constantly, and I see these guys chewing it all the time and putting it on all those mosquito bites. This is a great one to know if you're a camper or hiker. And right next to those guys, check it out. That's nature's Skittles right there, friends. This is wood sorrel. It's a plant in the Oxalis genus. There's 3 different species of wood sorrel here in Ontario. I think that's probably the most common one, Oxalis stricta. It makes a yellow flower, which does contain pollen, which is good for pollinators, but it's amazing for us because it has a delicious, super tangy, sour, lemony taste. Every part of this plant is edible. It's amazing in salads. I literally use it as a lemon substitute when I'm making salad dressing. Like, it pops like crazy as soon as you start to chew it up, and it's just an amazing, hyper abundant little plant that most people mow down. And quick note on this plant that a lot of people tend to confuse with clovers. I've done it myself many times. It's actually super easily differentiated from a clover by its cordate leaf shape. You see how that leaf looks like a little heart? Clover doesn't look like that. Wood sorrel does. Here's a little quick comparison of the two. There was literally some clover growing right beside it, but on closer inspection, if you look closely, they actually don't look anything alike at all. I'm going to show you some more clovers as we go along today, I'm sure of it. But anyway, before I get carried away in this one little square meter, let's move out to the front lawn because I want to really show you what I'm talking about. And if you've never really let your lawn go for like months at a time, you might be shocked at the biodiversity, the sheer number of native plants that show up, the wildflowers, and the life that starts to happen in there. Am I right? Like, look at that. You don't want that? It's like a literal meadow of wildflowers in your front yard. Are you trying to tell me all this isn't wildly beautiful? Because it is in its own way, and in a better way, if you ask me. And what do I see down here? Speak of the devil, look at this little swallowtail butterfly. I love swallowtails. You see tons of them this time of year, and this one happens to be eating a highly invasive flower called hawkweed. Now, this stuff has colonized most of Canada and most of North America because it's really good at reproducing, and unfortunately, it outcompetes native species for habitat and resources. So I'm definitely going to pull as many as I can before they run to seed, but in the meantime, they're making lots of pollen and nectar for these pollinators, and at least that's a good thing this time of year. That pollen and nectar and habitat really is the whole point of the whole No-Mow initiative. Wait till I start showing you all the things that are going on in here and all the species. If you've never paid attention to it before, it'll blow your mind. This little ecosystem that's developing in here is so much more than just a bunch of quote-unquote tall weedy grass. My God, look at all this. There's sheep sorrel in the Rumex genus. I see a ton of oxeye daisies. I see more dandelions. I see more wild strawberry. I see fleabane. Oh, I love this plant. They're so pretty. I'll show you those close up in a minute.
This video is going to be 8 hours long if I'm not careful, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start filming some really nice shots, hopefully, of some of these plants, and I'll drop in a bunch of information on some voiceovers. Like, check out this beautiful oxeye daisy. There's tons of them in here. They're amazing for pollinators, and people have been using them in traditional medicine for centuries. And right beside them, check out this sheep sorrel. It's an okay food source for pollinators, but for us, it's a beautiful culinary herb. I've even baked bread with it, and it's got some good herbal medicine in it too. Oh yeah, now we're talking. These are wild strawberries, baby. Woodland strawberries, to be more accurate. And this is the time of year where they're just starting to ripen and get sweet and tasty and juicy, and they're freaking everywhere. Especially all up in my lawn, believe it or not, so if I mowed it, I guess I just wouldn't get to make jam this year. Would I, you freaking jerk? Yeah, jerk store ran out of you if you're mowing that. That's for sure. Look at this hawkweed. Swaying in the wind in slow motion at 60 frames per second. It's beautiful. You freaking jabroni, leave it. And I promised I was gonna give you a much closer look at this fleabane. Not only are they like mega pretty and delicate to have scattered all over the place, every single pollinator that I'm aware of goes nuts for these things. Case in point, look at this little son of a bitch. Lapping it up. He won't even stop to take a breath. He just keeps going and going and going. Now, I believe this is a little hoverfly, possibly the margined calligrapher fly, but I'm no entomologist. Let me know down in the comments if you actually know. But this whole group of tiny little flies and insects are really important for pollination. We tend to think of bees and butterflies as being the main pollinators, but these little guys do a ton of heavy lifting. Now, all that being said, this little fucker has a problem. He cannot stop himself. He needs to go to FA Fleabane Anonymous because it's out of control. We've just been watching him do the bar crawl from flower to flower to flower, and somebody needs to cut this guy off. He's a menace, and he won't even let anybody else order a drink. He wants it all to himself, and he just keeps pounding them back. Shots, 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 shots. He's talking shit and starting fights. Somebody's gonna get hurt. Take his keys and call the cops. And finally, someone that can stand up to this guy. He's not gonna mess with this parasitic wasp. She'll knock him right on his ass. Seriously, no joke, parasitic wasps are freaking baller, dude. They lay their eggs inside other insects, and their larvae eat those insects from the inside out. Which is why parasitic wasps and other species like them are so important for pest control worldwide, from your home garden all the way up to huge industrial agriculture. I told you, we need these guys, and they need tiny little flowers like this fleabane, which also has some useful benefits for us, but that's a subject for a different video.
Check out this little butterfly eating on the flowers of that creeping Charlie.
Yeah, looking at the footage, I think this is actually a moth, but who's counting? Like I said, I'm not an entomologist, I'm more of a wild mushroom and plant guy, but we like him either way. And he's going about his business way down in the depths of that lawn that I didn't mow, and he wouldn't be there otherwise. And the plant whose pollen he's snacking on is Creepin' Charlie. Considered a nuisance by most, but it's actually really beautiful.
Look at all of it underneath this little mountain ash tree.
I love this stuff. It actually smells and tastes really good in the right context, and I don't mind it in my lawn at all. Just like I don't mind this little guy, forget-me-nots. Not because they're particularly tasty, although they make a real nice garnish on a plate. Insects love them and need them, and that's the important thing. And here's another one pollinators absolutely love. This is moss phlox, a beautiful flowering moss in the phlox genus that everybody and their uncle will get in on as soon as they start to bloom. I've seen all kind of bees and butterflies and moths and even hummingbirds hit these things.
Look at all that moss phlox in there.
And these things come in a whole bunch of different colors. Check out these white ones, but there's also pink ones, blue ones, purple ones, you name it. And they're all actually the same species, they just flower in different colors for some reason.
These are lupins. They're not on my lawn, but I wanted to show them to you. The bees love them.
Yeah, lupins are amazing for pollinators. They're another wild native plant that's just growing in my yard, but I'm not going to tell you a whole bunch about this plant, at least not right now, because I want to chill and just like watch this bee do his thing, and check out that little guy on top of the plant as well. What's he up to? And check out this pretty little damselfly sitting up on top of this lupin. She's actually not availing herself of the pollen like all the other insects that are attracted to these plants. She's hunting those insects. Hey, a damselfly's gotta eat, man.
And while we don't consider her to be a primary pollinator, she will move some around while she's hunting and moving from plant to plant. Now, check out this super cool find. I'm not exactly sure what this is other than it's a molt. It's the exoskeleton of an insect that got shed and left behind, and it's kind of gnarly, but it's also super cool.
And check out these beauties. This is broadleafed helleborine. This is a plant I had no idea even existed. It's a species of wild orchid that likes woodland habitats. I've got it all over my front lawn. It's freaking everywhere. I've been mowing them for years and just discovered it last year. They make a beautiful orchid flower. That's insane. I'll try to remember to show you these guys once they flower later in the season. And these guys here are the often maligned and feared goldenrod. I'm not going to go into it now. Maybe I'll do a whole video on it in the future, but chances are you are not allergic to this plant. You're allergic to ragweed. This thing doesn't have airborne pollen. It falls straight down. In fact, this thing is an antihistamine.
And right beside that guy, check out this beautiful red clover. I'll talk to you a lot more about this plant in future videos, but it's amazing for both pollinators and for us.
And you might be asking yourself, well, if it's so great, why don't I see a million pollinators in here? Why aren't we seeing a ton of them? Well, here's the reason there's not a ton of insects today is number one, it's pretty windy. I think you can hear it and probably see it. So they're mostly hunkering down, and B, I keep walking through it and scaring them away. So trust me, there's tons and tons of them in here. On a calm day, there's millions. Like, it's crazy. Okay, maybe not millions, but like hundreds, if not thousands. No joke.
Look, there's the rare and elusive basement boy. What a good boy.
Yeah.
What a good helper. He's helping his dad.
I'm gonna try and go to a little calmer area. If I can find a break from the wind, we're gonna find a lot more insects.
Just gonna walk into the garden. It's a little calmer in here. And sure enough, I mean, he's eating chives, but that's a swallowtail butterfly and a really pretty one. Eating on those chives, and it's because they're in flower, and all the wildflowers do that exact same thing.
Yeah, they sure do, and as I was alluding to with the fleabane earlier, people tend to think of big showy flowers as the things that pollinators need, but there's a ton of pollen produced by tiny little wildflowers, just like this white clover. You ever pick these things when you were a kid? They were everywhere in the area that I grew up, and we used to pull the little petals off and kind of suck the nectar off the bottom. Here's another look at that leaf if you want to identify it. And right beside that clover is another really important plant for butterflies. You know this one, this is milkweed. Its big claim to fame is with monarch butterflies, but other insects need it as well. And check out this absolutely gorgeous wild blackberry in flower right beside that milkweed. This little guy is just chowing down on that stuff, and I've got it everywhere in the yard. And I know most people don't have that problem and wouldn't even consider it to be a quote-unquote weed or a nuisance plant, but it's like taking over my yard. I rip tons of it out every single year, and it just keeps coming back, but I leave it until the flowers are done to make sure these guys get to eat. And there's a look at the leaves. And the last little plant that we're going to look at closely before I wrap things up are these beautiful little buttercups. Tell me you don't want a bunch of these cute little things just hanging around your yard for as long as possible. Of course you do. Now, these guys do have a long history of traditional medicinal use, but I don't recommend them for anything. They're actually mildly toxic, so don't bother. But look, they can even grow out of your driveway. What's not to like?
And just grabbing some wild strawberry snacks while I'm filming this for you guys. If you've never had a wild strawberry, especially this one, Frigeria vesca, the woodland strawberry, there's as much flavor in one of these little berries as there is in the two of those giant ones from the grocery store, trust me.
But anyway, guys, I think you get the point. This is just one tiny little area of my yard. I bet you if I kept walking around, and again, I don't want this video to be 8 hours long, I could find 50, maybe 100 more species that are beneficial for pollinators and insects, and potentially even for us. So don't mow it, grow it. Lawns are bullshit anyway, man. They give you nothing back. They just take up time and resources. Let it go, man, and the longer the better. The longer you leave it, the better it is for your living neighbors. The better it is for your garden if you're growing one, and the better for wildlife in general. And if you're maybe curious about doing a deeper dive into any of the plants that I mentioned today, let me know down in the comments. I'd be more than happy to make a bunch more videos about wild plants for you. And hey, if you happen to be coming up to my neck of the woods this summer, or maybe all the way out into the fall, come do a workshop with me if you're interested in this kind of stuff. I give weekly wild mushroom and wild plant identification courses. I give courses about medicinal mushrooms and forest ecology and all kind of fascinating subjects that have to do with the outdoors. I hope to see you out in the bush classroom one of these days. Anyway, friends, thanks for hanging out all the way to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do weekly videos just like this about wild plants and mushrooms and hunting and fishing and foraging and organic gardening and home cooking, and I'd love to see you back.
Thanks again for hanging out, friends. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next Thursday at 7 p.m.